All right, welcome everybody to the webinar about this low EMF community in Nicaragua. Super happy that you all were able to join today. I am very passionate and excited about this project. Yeah, I just wanted to hold this webinar. It's going to be very informal, just to answer questions about my experience there and my results from the testing, because I'm getting a lot of questions about it. So yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for coming. If you don't know me, if you're not familiar with my work, my name is Kathy Cook. I'm board certified in holistic nutrition, and I'm also a certified building biologist. So I've been doing that since about 2017. Working as both building biology environmental consultant for air quality and electromagnetic radiation specialist, so doing a lot of work in EMF as well. I'm a certified residential mold inspector, so most of my work these days is actually in mold and air quality, but of course I'm still doing a lot of EMF work as well. Just not a lot of amazing mold inspectors out there, so there's a lot of demand for that. So I got into this field because I had my own health challenges for decades, 30 plus years, and the worst symptoms I had were insomnia. I could go days probably without sleeping, and some anxiety, ringing in the ears, some muscle weakness. And around 2015, I started to take the topic of EMF a little bit more seriously, or I started to look into it. And when I mitigated, I unplugged my Wi-Fi and stopped using the cell phone. And within just a few days, I noticed dramatic changes in my physical body. So that's how I got into this. And that's why I do this work, because I know that there's millions of us out there that have symptoms, and the rest of us who don't have symptoms likely are still being impacted. So yeah, I'm pretty passionate about this. I do have a lot of free content. I'm not trying to plug myself here, but just because I'm so passionate about this, I have tons of free content on YouTube. If anybody wants to check out, I have a lot of videos of me testing stuff around town. I tested on an airplane, as you can see in this video. Just a lot of free content for people that need to learn more information about what the testing means, what you can do to protect yourself. And I'm also very fortunate to consult for the company Shield Your Body. And I've got several webinars on their YouTube channel, which honestly, there's a lot of very helpful information there. So just for people that want to learn more, go check those out. And then my business name here, Whole Home and Body Health, you can always go to my website and learn more there. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? What and where is this community? What the vision is for the development? What my on-site assessment results were? What kind of readings I was getting? My experience on the property, kind of how I felt physically. I'm going to talk a little bit about ECI, who is the development company. And then I'll briefly talk about who the community is for, who might it not be for, some further considerations, and then, of course, we're going to have a Q&A. So the area, this is a picture of one of the neighborhoods that's already developed on the area. It's called Grand Pacifica. It's in Nicaragua, and it's quite beautiful. It's right on a black sand beach. The beach is fantastic. And yeah, the Grand Pacifica area is about 2,500 acres. And the development company, they own the entire area, which is very, very good for our purposes because, there's there's not a risk of other developers or other companies or a cell phone company coming in and saying, hey, we need to put this infrastructure there. We need to put a cell tower here. That's not going to happen because they own the surrounding areas. And then, of course, we've got the ocean to one side. So the chances of further issues coming in for development for radio frequency aren't really there, which is awesome. Okay, so here's another picture of the area. This is the hotel that exists. Here's a pool. There's a little restaurant here. And you can see there is a cell tower on the property, which I'll talk about more. But right in the distance here, all of the antennas are pointed towards as if you were looking at it. And the Isla, the proposed low-EMF community, is way over here. So the antennas are pointed in the opposite direction, which is why I got very, very low readings in the proposed development. So yes, but if you want, if you want to spend time over here, the levels weren't, they were in the hundreds, and I'll get to what those levels mean, which is higher than, a sensitive person wants to be around, but it wasn't that high. Now, if I get over here to some of these houses that are closer, of course, the levels go up. One of the highest readings I got was 6,000 microwatts per square meter in one of these houses, but that's very far away from the proposed development. So this is the area, and I just want to step back for a brief second, and which I should have said a couple minutes ago, and say that part of the reason why I am so optimistic or hopeful about this community is because it means a lot to our movement. In the EMF world, as you all know, people who are watching this, you know that we have been dismissed. We have been told we're crazy, it's all in our head, EMFs aren't a thing, they don't harm us, and more smart homes are being built, smart cities, all of the things. But if there is a successful development by a development company, and there is demand for this, that's going to be so important for us and so important for our community in the EMF world. And if it is a success, then other development companies might catch on, and they might say, well, that worked there and there's demand for it. I want to capitalize on that too. If it does not succeed, and by not succeeding, I mean there's not enough interest for the development to progress. If there's not enough interest, then that could be a big blow for us, because another development company or somebody else interested in developing a community like this might say, well, they tried that down in Nicaragua and that didn't work, so there's clearly not enough interest. Anyway, that's primarily the reason why I'm trying to spread the word, because I'm very, very hopeful that it is a huge success, and I know there's enough demand, but there's logistics. So this is a foreign country. This is far away from where many of us live. So there are obstacles, but I'm just really, really hopeful and excited about the project. So I thought I would mention that. And then let's talk a little bit more about location. Okay. Nicaragua is where we're at here. And so you see Managua down here, right on the Pacific Ocean side. Managua, the capital city, this is where the major airport is. And then you fly into Managua, and it's about an hour drive to Grand Pacifica on the coast here. So this is the location of the development company, or of the development rather. And so it's called Grand Pacifica, the development. It's about 2,500 acres. So it's a huge parcel of land that the development company owns. So they do have other neighborhoods on this property that's already existing. So what you see here is a kind of a hotel. They got a pool, they got a little restaurant. And then these are individual homes off in the distance here. Some other just pictures of the community. People kind of get around on their golf carts. Some people have pools. And then this is a couple other houses that are obviously already being lived in. So the idea of this new community is it's going to be in a neighborhood back in this forest here. So it's going to be away from these neighborhoods, but it is going to be on the same property. And there is a cell tower on this property. It is about a mile away. Let's see, actually you can see it right here, just barely. That actually might be the radio. It's over in this direction. The distance is a little deceiving. It is about a mile from the proposed neighborhood. And I was picking up very little of it in the neighborhood that where this low EMF community is going to be. But I was picking up some of it in the developed neighborhood that already exists. So the antennas are pointing towards some of these homes that are already built. And I was getting around 6,000 microwatts per square meter in some of the already developed areas. That was, I think, the highest reading I got. So that is something to know, that some of these areas do, if you're going to go to the pool and the restaurant, it was actually a couple hundred microwatts per square meter there, which I'll get into what those numbers mean. A little bit elevated, not higher than we're going to get when we go outside and go to any given restaurant anyway, but that is there, but I was not picking it up over in where the proposed area is going to be. So that's good. All right, so many of these slides are not mine. Many of these slides are from the development company who gave me permission to use them. I just didn't really see a reason to, they were already created, and so I'm just kind of showing you what some of their marketing collateral looks like. But this is one of their slides here. So, just some general ideas of what the community is like. They do have 3.5 miles of beach. The beach is pretty special. Like I mentioned, 2,500 acres. Tropical climate, so they're comparing it to a Southern California climate. Like I said, an hour from the airport, and then multiple different neighborhoods here. So the community I stayed in is this Ava community here. So there's this cluster of tiny homes. And then this is called the Bella community over here. I stayed in one of these tiny houses. This is off-grid. This is an eco community. So this community that's built here, it has solar, it has mini splits, it has LED light bulbs. So as I'm sure you know, this area, it did have EMF concerns, right? Because solar obviously is a dirty electricity producer, LED light bulbs as well, mini splits as well. I personally did okay here. The electric fields, magnetic fields were extremely low, but for somebody that's trying to live in a low EMF environment, this is not it. Of course, they created all of this before they even had an awareness about EMF, but this is a neighborhood that is existing. It's where I stayed, and I actually did okay. So this is just kind of to give you an idea of what's already there. So the proposed community, which is called Isla, it's going to be kind of let's see, I think that's to the northeast, kind of, back in the forested area behind this area. And there's plenty of distance where what's happening in Ava is not going to impact what would happen in Isla. So that's good. This is kind of what they're hoping for the homes to look like here. This is just a rough idea of a sketch from the architect that gives you an idea of what the proposed homes will look like depending on the size of the house. So this gives you a better idea. This is the community I just showed you here, the Isla community, and I'm sorry, the Ava and Bella communities, and then here's Isla, the Low-EMF community. So it's a good distance away. It's about 600 yards from the beach. So if you were going to walk to the beach, you know, it'd take, I don't know how long it would take to walk 600 yards, 10, 20 minutes, something like that. But it is densely surrounded by the forest. And there's a teak forest on this side over here. And the teak forest is going to remain. So how the teak works is they harvest it every 25 years. Once it's to the size where they can use it for lumber and furniture and stuff like that. So that's not going to be cut down until 25 years, and then it will be replanted. But the area where the homes are, it's got a pretty good canopy, a tree canopy there. And it's already thinned out for the purpose of this development. So it's going to remain pretty forested, which is great because it's giving a lot of protection to the homes here. So this is me inside the proposed area. So you can see a lot of the trees and the foliage. So I'm doing some radio frequency testing here. It was extremely low. I'm going to actually pull up my report now. So I'm going to stop my share. If anybody has questions right now, go ahead and raise your hand as I'm going to pull up my report. Or you can just unmute yourself. That would be totally fine too. All right. So when I was measuring, I obviously was measuring all 4 fields of the electromagnetic spectrum. So I tested electric fields, radio frequency, magnetic fields, dirty electricity. Of course, there's no infrastructure to the area yet. So we didn't have any electric or magnetic fields or dirty electricity. But so I was mainly concerned about radio frequency, of course. So for those of you that are not familiar with the building biology guidelines and what the levels are for radio frequency, you can see them here. So radio frequency being down at the bottom, I measured in microwatts per square meter. For a no concern range, we would be under 0.1. For slight concern would be at 0.1 to 10. For severe concern, we're at 10 to 1,000. And then extreme concern over 1,000. Now, for anyone that doesn't measure this on a regular basis or you don't have a meter, to give you an idea of where these numbers are at, when I'm doing an assessment and I walk into a home, right off the bat, I'm usually getting anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 plus. Generally because people have Wi-Fi, they have their cell phones on, they got a TV going, a smart TV, numerous different things. So, our guidelines in building biology are strict because we're taking into consideration a sensitive person. So getting to a no concern range, extremely difficult unless you are, kind of in the middle of nowhere, so to speak, or you're in a shielded environment. But in an average neighborhood in the US, we're going to have hundreds to thousands of microwatts per square meter. So the meter I used was the Safe and Sound Pro 2. I do have more expensive professional meters, but I was cautioned not to bring the more obtrusive meters because there was some concern that my equipment may have been confiscated when I was going through immigration. Apparently, others have tried to bring other type of equipment down before, and they had it taken from them. So my goal was to be as stealth as possible. So I had this is all the equipment I had, and so I kind of had it in pockets and tried to be very stealth. And I had no problem, thank goodness. So I used the Safe and Sound Pro 2 for my measurements here. And this is what I got in the area where the Isla area where the homes would be. So I was in the slight concern range almost the entire time. I tested over the course of 4 days, multiple different times. So I was there in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening, just to get a general idea of the overall levels. So I was very happy with the results. So I was anywhere from 0.1, generally 0.1 to 5, most of the time I was there. And a lot of the areas, and I've got, this is a map of the area. So these red areas are the lowest average peaks. And I realize I probably should have made those a different color because it looks like it's high, but very, very low in these areas. This corner lot here was where I recorded the highest peak, which was 25 microwatts per square meter. I got that one time on a Saturday afternoon where there was a lot of, the most traffic. There was a wedding party on the property and people were at the beach. So it was the most traffic during that day. So that's the highest peak I got just once. Otherwise, during the entire 4 days I was there, I was measuring anywhere from 0.1 or 0 to 4 or 5 microwatts per square meter. I thought those results were excellent. And given how the buildings are going to be built, which I have a picture of in a little bit, with cinder block and concrete, as well as a metal roof, I fully expect there to be almost 0 inside the homes. So very, very, very happy about that. So like I did mention, the radio frequency in the surrounding areas, definitely higher. So if you wanted to spend time, perusing the property, there is going to be some higher levels there. Let's see, at the pool, it was relatively low, 100 to 370, which was mostly from people's cell phones nearby. At the beach, if I was over in a populated area, the highest peak I got was about 250. It was populated though. There were people there with their phones. Otherwise, most of the time when I was there, I was getting nothing on the beach. So I wasn't getting any of the cell antenna. So, obviously I was pretty happy about that as well. Just to give you an idea of what some of the other fields were like in the already developed areas, I was not getting any magnetic fields inside any of the proper, well, that's not true. There was one home that I tested for somebody that was vacationing there. So one specific layout that they had in the tiny house community, they had the main electrical panel on the other side of a bedroom. And so that was high. We moved the bed to the other wall and that was fine. But these are all considerations that will not happen in the Isla community. As I'm continuing to consult with them, the layout is going to be very specific. So we're going to avoid anything like that. Electric fields were pretty low, and I think that has to do with the cinder block and the way that they're building. The dirty electricity, we did have dirty electricity in the tiny house communities where I was staying because of the solar. So it was high. You can see this here. This was from the mini split, actually. When I turned the mini split on, we get high levels. When I turned it off, it was much lower. So for anybody that has a mini split or you've been considering that, they are a source of dirty electricity, just so you know. And that's pretty much it for my report. So I'm going to stop my share again and then go back to my PowerPoint here.
Do they have any of that higher RF? I noticed you're not using one of the new safe and sound higher RF meters.
The millimeter wave, the 5G millimeter wave.
Yeah.
No, they do not. They're not using that there. So I didn't even bring it because there was no reason to. They do not have millimeter wave technology on the property anywhere. And they also, one question that I've gotten a lot is about potential satellites and Starlink. There is, I guess, for political reasons, Starlink is not allowed in Nicaragua. So there wasn't a concern for, Starlink satellite in that area as well. And then I think our just answered a question about that. Let me get to my chat here. So R lives in Panama, so he's got some knowledge of the area, and he's saying he doesn't think there's 5G anywhere in Nicaragua, and I did not see it anywhere either. So I'm very happy about that. All right, so I'll go back to my PowerPoint here. Yeah, I wanted to bring that meter, but with the fear of getting things confiscated, I was trying to minimize that. They did ask me a few questions about my Gauss meter. I just told them I was an electrical engineer and broken Spanish, and they said, okay, girl, whatever. Let me through. So again, just some pictures of what some of the home ideas will look like, the floor plans will look like. I think they're pretty cute. So there's going to be tiny houses and then 1 and 2 bedroom options, or they're also giving you the option to just buy a lot. And then you can hire your own developer if you don't want one of the buildings that they have designed. So the lots start at 69,000, and then this area here is where the bigger 1 and 2 bedrooms are proposed to go, and then this area back here is going to be where the small little tiny houses will be. So there's 80 home sites total. 80, well, it looks like 83 actually. And then here's an idea of the tiny house. And so there, if you have this built by them, the cost is starting at 182,000, unless of course you just buy the site and you wanted to build it yourself or have somebody build it. So here's the 1 bedroom, 1 bath. They're proposing at 272. And then the 3 bedroom, 2 bath at 372. So that's the idea. This is kind of a rendered drawing here of what it's going to look like. And then just some ideas about the construction. So it's pretty dense. They're using the concrete and cinder block. So inside the homes that I did test, because I tested some of the properties in the developed area, and in one house I was in, they were getting about 1,500 microwatts per square meter outside from the cell tower, and inside we were getting extremely little, like under 10. Because of the density of the way that they're building. So that I was pretty optimistic about that. And then I am consulting with them on shielding the wires with metal clad so that we're gonna reduce the electric fields, any chance for dirty electricity, and the magnetic fields. Of course, we might not get 100% of that, but the reduction is going to be very good with the shielded wires. I am not consulting with them on painting the homes up front because that doesn't always go well for everybody, especially a sensitive person. However, it is an option if somebody decides, that they're going to purchase a property. You do have the option to do that. It's not going to be standard. It's going to be such a minimal exposure as it is. I'm not comfortable with doing that as standard because there can be problems with it. But it is an option for anybody that wants to pursue that. And then we're going to have low-E glass, and potentially we could put film on the glass as well. Again, it's not necessary right now with the low levels, but these are all things that we're looking at doing to increase that reduction of radio frequency. So my experience, I had a great experience actually. So these are just some pictures of me testing. This cute little dog named Whiskey here, I did some body voltage readings on him, which was kind of adorable, because he likes to hang out right under the feet of where this person is working, and there was a transformer under there and the body voltage was very high. We fixed all that, but I wanted to make sure and measure the existing infrastructure, to just get an idea of what the electricians are doing, to see are the loads balanced, what were the power lines doing, just as a peripheral to get an idea of how is this going to be when the infrastructure is laid. Of course, we can't know with 100% certainty what how that infrastructure is going to be when it is laid to the Isla community, but this was a good test for me just to get an idea of what the electricians' practices are. And it all looked very good. I was not getting any elevated magnetic fields from the power lines. The utility meters are not smart. They're digital, but they are not two-way communication, so they're not emitting radio frequencies. So I was really happy about that. I felt really good there. As someone who's mildly sensitive, I actually felt better, a lot better there than in my home here in Boise. I have very little frequencies here, but I do have a cell tower about a half a mile away. I'm getting about 60 microwatts per square meter. Everything else is very low. I don't have any dirty electricity, electric fields, magnetic fields that are a concern. But part of the experience for me was, I was getting sun every day. I was outside getting fresh air. I was walking on the beach and I was grounding. The food was pretty excellent. I was eating fresh tropical fruit. So from an energetic standpoint, I felt very good. And there were several other sensitive people there. They all had a similar experience. So from the perspective of somebody who is electrically hypersensitive, so far our experiences have been very positive. So, but a sensitive person isn't going to want to stay in this EVA community where I did, where there's mini splits and solar panels and LED light bulbs. But I felt very good there. So I'm just going to talk real quickly on the development company. So it's ECI Development Company. This is the CEO and chairman, Mike Cobb. They've been doing development in Central America since 1996. I've had obviously a lot of interaction with them at this point. They were, Mike and his team were there on the property when I was there. I had a very, very good experience with them. I found them, the entire team, to be lovely people. I felt that they were very honest, a lot of integrity. I feel very, very good about the team. So there is some negative press about them online. So, and that question might come up. And so I just want to address that. Supposedly during COVID, there was a lot of challenges with the building. And some people in this community had a lot of frustrations with the pace of development. And so I don't know the full story. I don't know these people. I have not talked to them. But from what I understand in reading some of the reviews and talking to some of the people who are familiar with the development company and these experiences, was that these people gave them their money for the houses and they weren't built in a timely manner that they were comfortable with. And so there's a lot of negativity and frustrations about that experience, which, again, I'm not trying to defend the company. This is just what I know. I did talk to them about these concerns because obviously I want to be affiliated with any company or client who has high standards and is doing things ethically. I was reassured by their explanations, but I did not have this experience with these frustrated homeowners, so it is something to consider. I think part of it was COVID made it extremely difficult to obtain the supplies that they were normally using, and all of the other restrictions that COVID placed on all of our lives. And so also when you're building a home in a developing country, that can be a challenge all on its own without COVID even being part of the experience. So I think it was a mix of things that had some buyers left frustrated. So I personally would have no problem trusting the development company. If I was in a financial and professional position to leave the US, I would feel very comfortable moving forward with them, and I really wish that I could, actually. So who is this community for? I think it's for a health conscious person who's looking for a slower pace of life, better quality food, wants to be close to nature, likes a tropical environment. You're going to have to be a little bit adventurous because you're living in another culture. If you're not from Nicaragua, you're going to deal maybe with the language barrier. There's a lot of differences. I'm in the US, a lot of differences in Idaho compared to Nicaragua, obviously. If you have the ability to work remotely or you're retired, awesome. And I mentioned health freedom oriented because Nicaragua did not go through a lockdown during COVID and they did not enforce vaccinations. That may be a benefit to you or not, but that is something that the development company markets. So I would fit this picture. Like I would love to be able to live there. Unfortunately, my business is all in Idaho right now, and I don't have the luxury of leaving the country. But I'm working on changing that. Who is the community not for? I don't feel comfortable saying this is for an extremely sensitive person. If you're someone that's so sensitive that you can't turn on a light switch, which I have clients that fit that, this is probably not going to work because of the fact that, the area where the Isla community is going to be might work, but it is going to have electricity, there's going to be infrastructure there. There's going to be electrical power. There will be some solar that is feeding the community as well, because in this area, the power can go out a lot. So they want a backup system. Of course, I'm consulting with them on how to do this in the best possible manner, but we can't reduce all the fields 100%. So an extremely sensitive person, I would be very uncomfortable saying, yes, this is going to be awesome for you. And then you make this commitment and get down there and it doesn't work. So it's more, I feel more comfortable for somebody that's more mildly sensitive, that just wants a very low EMF community and that, wants the lifestyle. So the other factor here is if you don't live in Nicaragua, it's a long flight. So for me, I left my house at 5 in the morning and I landed at, I think, around 7 or 8 p.m. I had to get on 3 flights. So I was fully protected. In fact, I have a whole course on how to fly while reducing your EMF exposure and feeling good. I put all of my steps into action I made myself a shielded poncho, and I had my supplement routine and all the various things that I do. I did fine. But again, for an extremely sensitive person, it can be a ways to get there. And so, that's a consideration. And then you have an hour drive to the property. If you don't like the heat and you don't like a tropical environment, obviously that's a consideration. And you're going to have to be comfortable with everything that happens in a different culture. So from the financial perspective, again, these are not my slides here. This is the development company's slides. I don't know a lot about investing and how the money transfer works, but I know I'm going to get questions about this as I have. So just a few tips if you're looking at this seriously. I guess it's pretty easy to own land in Nicaragua. They have a property tax rate of 1%. No restrictions on foreign ownership, which is nice. So if you wanted to get residency, apparently there's 2 ways to do this. The pensioner program. So you want to be 45 plus and make more than $600 a month from pension. Again, I don't know the ins and outs of that, but that is an option towards residency, or if you invest, in which case, if you're purchasing a property, that would meet that requirement. And then apparently they take crypto for anyone's in that. And then there's financing. And I'll leave a link in the chat here in a second if, for financing and that kind of stuff, logistics. I don't know, I'm not the expert on that, but I will leave a link in the chat so that you can contact them directly to get that information. So the other thing for this community to actually be a go is that they're asking for 50 people to commit to the property by the end of April. And they're asking for a $5,000 fully refundable deposit. So they're doing this because they don't want to lay all the infrastructure to the area if there's not enough interest. So, which, I understand. I mean, I wish they would just do it regardless, but I understand, they're going to spend a couple $1 million to do that, and they want to make sure that the interest is there. And yeah, so this is just my information. If, I'm obviously going to answer a bunch of questions now, but if anybody wants to reach me privately, if you have a question or you want to ask me more information, feel free to reach out anytime. And yeah, let's open it for questions here. Here's the URL. If you want to find out more information and you want to talk to them directly, the development company, this is the, I realize I just stopped sharing, so now you can't see it. So I'm going to put that in the chat for you. This is how you reach the development company directly if you are interested, or if you have questions that I can't ask, or to get on their mailing list or whatever it might be. All right, so there is the link in the chat. And cool, so that's just a general overview. And now I know there's some questions in the chat. If anybody else has a question, you can go ahead and raise your hand and we will get to them. Let's see. So someone's asking if I can record. Yes, thank you, R, very much for recording. And there will be a replay sent out. I will send out a replay to everyone who registered. That replay will come from my email list. So that it automatically puts you into my email list. So if you don't want to get emails from me, you can just unsubscribe. No pressure there. I just like, I don't like to be added to people's email lists without knowing. But since you registered, it automatically does that. So if you want me to take it off, email me, no problem. That's all good. I just want to make sure you realize that it'll come from my email list, but you will get the recording. Stephen is asking, with such a densely wooded area in close proximity, how much danger is there of wild or dangerous animals having any contact with the community? Yeah, I didn't experience that, but I didn't stay in that forested area. I did ask this question because I was thinking like scorpion, snakes. The answer that I got from the development team was that there wasn't too much around. Maybe some snakes in that area, which, once the development is in place, I'm sure a lot of that's going to kind of take care of itself. But they did not tell me of any wild animal risks on the property that they're aware of. There's mosquitoes. It wasn't too bad. Mosquitoes weren't that bad, but that was the most irritating. Oh, and there was ants. I did yoga on a little patch of grass near the beach one day, and I got ant bites all over me. That was pretty annoying, but I learned my lesson from that. So that was it. So I don't think that that's much of a concern. Caitlin is asking, what kinds of rules and guidelines will be in place to ensure the area remains low EMF? Yeah, that's a great question. So they're having these guidelines in place that you cannot walk outside your house and use your cell phone. That is prohibited. The internet is going to be fiber, and so the rules are going to be that you are not allowed to have Wi-Fi. It all has to be Ethernet, and you're not allowed to use all of your smart devices inside anywhere on the Isla property. Now, how that can be enforced, I don't know. I imagine if somebody is reacting or somebody has a meter and picks up on something and they alert the property managers, then that can be addressed. But I also don't think that most of us who are going towards this community are not going to be using those things anyway. But yes, they are going to have those rules and process. Everything's going to be Ethernet, no smart. Obviously, the appliances will not be smart. And we're going to hope that our neighbors, are following the rules, and there will be some kind of enforcement if that a neighbor's, not complying. So that is part of the plan. So the second half of that question, I'm asking both in terms of development of the surrounding areas that could impact the Isla community as well. Yes. For example, are cell phones allowed? And if so, what will be the guidelines for their use? Assume landlines will be made available. I don't know if there's going to be landlines made available. I don't know if that's a good question that I will ask the development company. But what I did is I made calls through my Google Voice number that was plugged into the Ethernet. And then a lot of people in Central America and South America use WhatsApp, which you can also plug in via an Ethernet cord and make a call that way. That tends to be the main mode of communication, is the WhatsApp, which you can use wired. So that was an easy solution for me. As far as the other communities, there's going to be a big enough buffer zone between Isla and the other communities where what's happening in the other communities should not influence Isla. They're very aware of that, and they're going to keep a large buffer zone around that so that that does not happen. I mean, I don't think the development company wants to create this community and then have 83 homeowners very upset because suddenly everything changed. They're pretty cognizant that the rules have to stay the rules, right? And the rules need to be followed. Yes, Michael, like I mentioned, this will be recorded and you will receive it. Yeah, so R is saying that a mini split is how most Central Americans use air conditioning. Yeah, and so there will be many splits in these units because it's not going to have forced air. There's no other air conditioning option. So that's, partly why it's going to be very important that the wires are shielded to minimize any dirty electricity from that mini split. And I didn't hardly use mine. I have a high heat tolerance though, but I think I turned mine on maybe once or twice to cool the space, and I didn't need it. The air, having windows open was fine for me, but shielding those wires is going to be what's super important to reduce that dirty electricity. ISIS, I'm sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly. You're having problems with the recording. I think Art answered that question for you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So Linda, you're asking about the smart meters. They do not. And I mentioned that earlier. The meters aren't smart, thank goodness. And I don't even think they're not using that technology there. When I asked the development company about this, they didn't know of any areas that are using smart meters currently, but they did say, just in case, we will go get some non-smart meters and stock up. So they're aware of that, and they're not going to have those available. Denise, sewage, water, gas, right? So water is a well, and the sewage is what they did give me an answer to this. It's a traditional sewage system that they've used in the other communities. There's not going to be gas, just electric. Well water, regular sewage system. I can dig up more information about the specifics on that if you want. So Caitlin is saying the health, freedom, piece is a bonus. Yeah, so another question about rentals. So if you wanted to go down there and check out the area before purchasing, which I would recommend for anybody, right? This is a big commitment. And if you didn't want to purchase right away, but you want to go down and check it out, you can rent one of these other places, like one of the tiny houses that I stayed at. Again, there's solar and, all these things. I did ask them if anybody could pitch a tent, and they agreed to that. I would do that. I would take a tent down there and pitch a tent and sleep in it. So if anybody was interested in that, that's an option. I'm also encouraging them to do some yurts, which they had some plans to do some yurts anyway. I would love to see that go up now, so that if you wanted to go down and stay in a yurt, you could do that. But yes, there are rentals you could go down and check out. If you turn the power off to the house, like in one of the areas that I stayed at, everything was pretty low, except the Wi-Fi was pretty strong. I was picking up my neighbor's Wi-Fi pretty strong, even though mine was off. So there, it might not work for sensitive people. If you're open to pitching a tent, you could totally do that. I definitely think that checking it out is a good idea. Yes, and are saying, right, depending on where you live, my flight time during that day was long. If you're in a southern state, obviously it's not that bad, and there's direct flights, and it's pretty simple. So I'm obviously quite north. Is there swimming in the ocean? Oh yeah, Amy, 100% swimming in the ocean. That was it was very good. It was awesome. It's apparently a very well-known area for surfing. But anytime I was there and went in the ocean, the waves were not big. I tried to get in the ocean every day. It was great. Really, really great. Shopping for groceries and supplies. Good question, Doug. That's a challenge. That for me would be the biggest challenge. I mean, if you needed to like really stock up on supplies, you're going to have to go to Managua, which is about an hour away. There are a couple little markets before that, just for some food, but there's a Costco in Managua, and then, you know, if you're going to have to get furniture or, I don't know, you know, hardware stuff or whatever, you're probably going to have a car, and you're going to have to drive to Managua to stock up. Because it's a pretty isolated area, which for our purposes works in our benefit. But yeah, you know, I guess how the locals do it is once a month they go to Costco and Managua in the grocery store, and then that's kind of how they do it. The banking situation. Terry is asking. Yeah, that I would click that link to connect directly to the development company for those kinds of questions. That is a little out of my wheelhouse. I'm not entirely sure. How close is the nearest hospital? I don't know the answer to that either. I imagine, I mean, a full hospital, you'd probably have to go to Managua for that. And I'll ask the development company about that one. Lori is asking about the 4G tower 1 mile away. Yeah, it's about a mile-ish. And like you saw, if you saw the map, if you were here when I was showing the map of my readings, I was getting hardly anything from it. At one point, I got 25 microwatts per square meter. That was the highest peak I got. Otherwise, 0.1 to 5. So I was getting very, very little. How much land with the property? It depends on the lot. So the tiny house lots are pretty small. And I'm basing this on where I stayed. You don't really have a yard. Your neighbor's pretty close. Let's say 20, 30 yards is your neighbor's house. With the bigger 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom lots, obviously you're going to have a lot more space. The exact amount of land you get with that, though, I'm not sure, Lori. That would be a good question for the development company. Caitlin says WhatsApp has a huge privacy violation. Yeah, I don't know, Caitlin. I'm sure, I mean, a lot, Google Voice is the same thing, and I use that. I know that there are considerations with this. I don't know what a better option is right now. Believe me, I wish there was. So, that's a consideration. Hopefully, if there's a better option, awesome. I guess that's something we're always continuing to look into. Denise asked, what's the water source, water purification? Yeah, so it's a well. They have a full water purification system on site. I actually visited that. The water was potable. I mean, you can brush your teeth with it and do all that, so you don't have to worry about, sometimes when you go to a developing nation, you have to be very careful about that. It was all very clean. I thought it tasted pretty good. So I don't know the extent to the purification, though. That would be a good question for the development company as well. And you can always add a purifier. Clothes washer and dryer. Yes, they have a washing machine at each home. And then most people have a clothesline. And it dries super fast because it's such a hot environment. I don't know if you're able to buy a dryer. You may. I'm not sure, but it does come with a washing machine. Lori's asking about homeowners insurance. Great question, and I don't have an answer for that one either. That would be a good question for the development company. I would imagine that there would be options for that. I'm not sure. R, if you're still with us, I don't know if you have homeowners insurance in Panama. If that's a thing, I would imagine it would be. Yes, in Panama. Yeah, so R says he has homeowners insurance in Panama. I'm assuming that means more than likely you can get it in Nicaragua too. Will pets be allowed? Yeah, pets are allowed. So one of the houses that I visited, I showed you earlier, I was doing a little body voltage on their dog. Cutest dog. There's another house I went to that had a couple cats. Yes, pets are allowed, no problem. What about those that are chemically sensitive or chemically vibration and noise sensitive? Yeah, Denise, awesome question. So I'm consulting with them on air quality as well. So I am very cognizant about that. In the place where I stayed, they had brand new furniture, brand new towels they stuck in there. And the towel, it hadn't been washed. And I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, come on. So I am very much consulting on the air quality piece for that. We are doing low VOC as much as possible. We're looking into fully wood furniture. Some of this is going to be a little bit challenging, like a mattress. I did have a client that found they went to Costco and they were able to get a pretty good mattress. So as far as some of those choices, it's going to come down to, if you're building, you get to choose, the furniture package or getting your own. All of the coatings and everything, of course, are going to be low VOC. And there's not a lot of chemicals besides the furniture anyway, because it's basically a concrete structure. So we don't have to worry about drywall and, flooring and that kind of stuff. The flooring's tile. Vibration, there shouldn't be a lot of vibration around. Of course, I did not test geopathic stress. I am encouraging, this is probably going to be lot dependent. I do have a colleague that tests geopathic stress remotely, and he's brilliant at it. In order for him to do the entire property, I'm not sure how realistic that is, but it can be mitigated. So I'm recommending that people, if they purchase a lot, have him do a survey on your property. He can do this like with Google Earth. It's amazing how he does it. And then he can guide you on where to put certain rebars to actually mitigate any geopathic stress that's there. So as far as the vibration, I didn't pick up any when I was there, but the infrastructure is not there. We don't have neighbors yet, so I don't know what that's going to look like. I can't imagine it's going to be big. There's not going to be a big substation nearby or a train station or anything like that. So I imagine the vibration's not going to be too much of an issue. Of course, I can't guarantee anything. And noise sensitive, it's extremely quiet on the property. It's very remote. I did not see planes flying overhead. The only noise is going to be from your neighbors. But again, those of us that are looking for a community like this, I don't think we're going to be having, raging parties till 3 a.m. At least I'm not. So I'm hoping that won't be too much of a problem. Can you hear the ocean from there? No. It's far enough away and it's dense enough. I could not hear the ocean. And I know this to be true because I got lost in the area one day. I was testing it and I had a little golf cart and I went back there and I got lost for like an hour. It's quite the ordeal. And I kept trying to listen for the ocean to help guide me out. And I could not hear it. In the community where I stayed, you could hear it, but in the Isla community, probably not. Can you import your car from the US? Yes, you can, Caitlin. There was somebody, well, I don't know, actually, from a legal perspective. I don't see why that would be a problem. There was somebody staying in the area when I was there who had driven down from, I want to say Kentucky or Texas, and they drove with their vehicle. Now, whether or not they were going to legally import it, I don't know what that process looks like. I can't imagine it would be a problem to just transfer that, pay some sales tax maybe, and get a Nicaraguan license plate. I'm not entirely sure. But this person drove down, so that seemed to work for them. I'm just as mold sensitive as I am EHS. Yep. So Caitlin, if you're still here, you're asking if you can unmute.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, okay, yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So I get that this is geared toward EHS, this community, and I really appreciated your introduction and the fact that you're also a certified mold inspector so that you appreciate that stuff too. And I know that there's so many potential needs in this community. But for me, again, the mold sensitivity is just huge because I'm recovering from being living in serial homes with toxic mold exposure has just been rough. So my question and concerns, I mean, there's just so many, and a lot of it is around, um, even just the building materials. I know that the people who have successfully built who've gotten out of mold have successfully built their own homes and overseen most of that by making sure that they're sourcing, even just it gets down to the wood, making sure that the wood that you're the basic structure of the home is built with wood that's not moldy in the first place. And then of course, you can have, I mean, there are architects who specialize in building homes that are going to not be able to harbor a lot of mold. So I'm wondering about that whole process and how aware and educated the builders are of this issue, because historically and just, I mean, it's just so bad. Builders are so bad, and they just don't really, they're not, I mean, there's no, what is it called? Codes to
I
really
know,
for
yeah,
this. And
yeah,
I could go on and on, but I'm just
yeah,
wondering how much oversight we'd be able to have if we took the option of I mean,
yeah.
even in the homes that are being built ready made, like I have just concerns and questions about, issues about that. And then even mini splits are prone to if you don't
Yeah,
clean them
they're
frequently.
huge.
So
Yeah.
that's a big concern. And then the final piece of that I think is the environment. And I'm not familiar with the environment there, but when you say tropical, I'm thinking high moisture. And so I'm wondering how that is controlled. So even if it is built without mold, how to control that in the homes.
Yeah, all very good questions and very important considerations. I have been really kind of hammering the air quality side for them, and I've made it very, because a lot of these folks on the development team in this community, they had never they you know the whole world of EMF is brand new to them, and so the piece with mold and this is totally new. So I've been mentioning that um, those of us that are concerned with EMFs, often air quality, it's the same, right? They play with each other, and both equally as important. So it is a tropical environment. The humidity is high. It is a concern for me. There's no wood in the building at all. It's all cinder block and concrete with plaster on the outside. So I have asked a lot of questions about the plaster. How is it applied? Is it breathable? Do we have an alternate for a breathable plaster? Because the last thing I want to do is trap moisture between the exterior wall and the plaster. So we're looking at that. I am requesting that each unit have a dehumidifier. I'm looking at, well, I've requested that, there's a bathroom exhaust fan in the bathroom, because in a lot of areas there's not. So I want to make sure that's happening. I want splash guards around the shower and a deep step. I mean, there's a lot of things that I am or have suggested and will continue to talk about with them to keep the moisture levels low, and talking about mold and microbial growth, all the things that we can think of to keep the risks as low as possible. But being a tropical environment, you know, that does concern me, because there's going to be some things that are beyond our control, and or even, I mean, I consulted on a new build last winter here in Idaho, and this person was taking every meticulous step to build a mold-free home. I mean, they had an outstanding architect, a builder, all natural materials, you know, hempcrete and plaster. But the builder made a little bit of a mistake when they put the plaster up, and they had a heat source inside. Long story short, there was some humidity and some mold grew in the attic space. All to say that things happen, and it is a consideration we should be aware of. As if, you know, no matter where we build. So the benefit of these homes is that there's only going to be, you know, a couple of plumbing penetrations because they're small. So that greatly reduces chances for plumbing leaks. It's on a slab, so there's no crawl space, there's no forced air, there's no wood, there's no drywall. You know, those are the big places. When I'm doing mold inspections, those are the places where the majority of the time issues happen. So if we're practicing good ventilation, we're cleaning the mini splits, you know, monthly, every other month, and they are going to put a very strict cleaning protocol in place for those. We have dehumidification. You know, we're going to do our best on that front, and you know, it's the chances of it being good for somebody recovering from mold are going to be much higher than most homes, especially how we build here in the US. But we, you know, it's still a consideration, and things happen. So I guess
Okay.
we're going to do our best.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up question is, like, if I did want to buy one of the lots and build on my own, would I have choice of architect and builder or no?
Yeah. Yep. You can do
Okay.
whatever you want on that. Yes.
Okay. In
I mean,
terms of sourcing building materials in the area, is that hard?
I don't think so. That would be a question for you to talk to the development company about. I would
Okay.
grab that link. Maybe
Okay. You,
that.
I got it. I
Okay.
took a screenshot when you
So
posted.
yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I was in one house where they built the entire house themselves. They didn't want to use the development company's contractor. They they said they had a good experience. So I'm not
Great.
sure though. I'm not sure. You know, you
Okay.
probably want specific materials, and I don't know what would be
Okay.
available there. So
But that would be possible to,
yes,
okay.
yes.
And then if I'm building, would it be possible, like, where would someone stay if they're, and this goes for anyone who's building, who chooses a lot and wants to build themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to oversee it, and so they want to be there while it's happening. Could you rent out one of the tiny homes, or could you just speak to
Mm-hmm.
that really quickly and then I'll be done? Thank you.
Yeah, yep, you can. You can rent out one of the properties that's already existing. Um, I'm hoping that they get these yurts put up soon, so that's an option for people. So yeah, there's you can rent a hotel room that's on site. So that's all, you have options there. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for your question. All right, we just got a few questions left, it looks like. What if you are non-US? Can you get them? Yes, doesn't matter where you live. You can live anywhere. This is definitely not just for US people. Can be from anywhere. How about mold? Yep, just answered that. Schools. Are they having schools where children must go to attend schools? Where, I don't know. I'm sure there's a school nearby. I don't think there's one on the property. That's a great question. I will pass that on to the team and ask about that. I'm sure there are options, but I don't know how far that option would be. So that's something to consider. Let's see. Will there be a home suitable for an older person, wheelchair accessible, shower, entry to house? Also for those models with bedroom on front of house, can this be flipped? Where will electricity enter? Wheelchair accessible. I'm sure that can be done. I will ask the development team. I'm sure they can make that accommodation. That should not be a problem at all. But I will definitely ask. Where the bedroom is in the front of the house, can that be flipped? I'll ask the architect. I don't see why not. Where will the electricity enter the house? Yeah, so we're talking about that. We're trying to get the service entrance to the utility area, which is going to be away from any living environments, right? So we've got a couple floor plans we've talked about. And in the corner of the house, in the back corner of the house, the utility entrance will be there, which will probably be, depending on the layout, not near a bed. I mean, it's just not going to be near a living space. So we're considering all of that so that we're minimizing any exposures at all. Can you buy a plot of land? Can you buy a plot now and decide to build later? Yeah, Alexandra, yes. You don't have to build right away. I don't know if they have a time frame on that, but there are lots purchased there that have been sitting without a house for quite some time. So I don't think there's any issue with that at all. And the same question about the schools. Yeah, I'll find out about that. So some of these questions I will ask, and then when I send out the recording, I can follow up with, I'll answer those questions in the recording. Outdoor barbecues and smoking. I didn't see any outdoor barbecues anywhere. Will they be allowed? I don't know. You don't see much barbecuing. I didn't see any. I'll ask about that. Smoking? I mean, I don't know if that's, I don't know. I doubt anybody who's going to be living in a community like this. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I have no idea. But most of us are, health conscious, and we're not doing that. But I'll ask. I don't know if they can make rules about smoking outside. I'm not sure. Caitlin asked how much of the lots. There's 69,000, I think it was. They start at 69, I should say. So they start at 69. So obviously the price is probably going to increase if you have a larger lot or corner lot. Can we finance lot purchase? Caitlin, that would be a question for the development company. I'm sure they say financing options are available, so I don't see why not. Oh, R says yes, they offer financing. So yeah, and what does the HOA fee cover? I'm not sure. I know that question has been asked. I was just trying to see if I had notes on that. That'd also a good question for the development company. How bad are the hurricanes? What climate risk do you see there? Well, we're on the Pacific side here, so not too much of a concern for hurricanes. That'd be on the Atlantic. And climate risk or tsunami risk. Yeah, I guess the tsunami, I guess there is a risk for that, given that you're near the ring of fire, right? I'll have to look into the history or forecasts for that kind of situation, but that is a consideration. Other climate risk. I mean, it's hot there. And they do go through a rainy season. So the weather's not always awesome, but you know, neither is it here. What was on the property prior? I don't know if there was anything on the property before. It's another good question I will ask. You guys have some very good questions. I feel like it's not been inhabited, but I'll make sure on that. Okay. And R says some of you like the rainy season. That's good. Yeah. Because I guess allergies are a lot less during the rainy season, and it gets cooler, and you get a little bit of a break from the sun. Understand? That's, yeah, I get that. Okay, well, that's all the questions I have. Thanks everybody for attending. And like I said, if you've got any more questions, you can reach out to me directly or the development company, either way. And how long do they estimate to build a house? Denise is asking. They're saying about 12 to 16 months from start to finish. So, you know, and I think that was some of the frustration that happened in the past with the development company, is that there were delays in that time frame and people were super frustrated by that. And when you're when you're doing this in a developing nation, I don't, 12 to 16 might be standard, but you know, the world happens and pandemics happen, and so I guess, you know, that's pretty much what we can expect. So awesome. Thanks everybody. Appreciate you showing up. I'm super excited about this. I really hope it's a go. It's very important for our community moving forward. So I'm hopeful.